Hi, I'm alongside lead economist Anthony Smith. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning. So, Andrew, congrats on the victory last night for your team.
Thank you.
Doing a quick overview of some of the employment updates. So, this morning we got the ADP employment update that showed over 570 jobs were added to the private sector for total non-farm. So, big news there. A lot of that came from the services, hospitality segment. But on the good side, which added just over 100,000, it was just around almost 50-50. Really is like 49%, 47% between manufacturing and construction. As you know, two segments I watch very closely, and we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But looking at this unemployment rate, this isn't the update that just came out, but talking to some of the unemployment numbers, which are going to be updated later on this week. We saw 4.8 last week, or not last week, but last report out. And so in some anticipation of this coming down somewhat, because we are seeing good results on those initial jobs claims continue to come down, hit pandemic lows. Almost a non-story now that we see new pandemic lows. Hopefully we get to that level here in a few weeks as we continue to kind of progress further and further in that 200,000 mark. Also seeing that this ADP report came out with a very positive result is showing that really good news that consumers are returning back to the workplace as COVID levels are coming down. But we're also seeing that the savings rate is also back down to pre-pandemic levels as well.
What's happening from the wages side? We're seeing some pretty severe inflation, at least, on the last 10 years. I think we're at the highest point right now. But what is happening on the wages side? Is it keeping up? Is it forcing that inflation? What's happening?
So wages are growing at a pretty exponential rate. And so this is going to be one of those things I think could be a bit of an interesting situation if we start to see demand come down, because as you know, we have an incredible number of job openings, over 10 million, I think, with the last report out. And knowing that there are more job openings than there are actual people to fill those roles is telling me that maybe there's some inflationary pressures on the overall openings. Not all these job openings are needed, but it's needed for this overwhelming demand. So if we start to see some of this demand diminish, and we're starting to see wages, which should be increased for a lot of individuals, a lot of Americans throughout the country, but there are going to be some roles that are going to be a little bit overly inflated, and those jobs are going to start to get priced out. And so I think as we see some jobs getting priced out, there's going to be maybe that pendulum's going to shift a little bit further back into the lane of the employer, and we're also going to see if it's sustainable, that push to automation where automation can be implemented.
Yeah, I was thinking there's actually quite a few deflationary secular trends happening right now, and I think remote work has to be one that we have to speak about. I don't know what percentage of people are going to go back to working hybrid, or this thing has been shifting a lot. Companies have been making different decisions based on the Delta variant or what the spread is. But I mean, there's a proportion of people that don't have to live in the big city that they were living in, and don't require the same cost of living that they did previously. So that is a bit of a deflationary factor on wages. But let's keep going.
Definitely. So. Great point there. On our next chart here, we have an update that's going to come out in just about 30 or so minutes, maybe just a little bit under. And that's going to be the revision for non-defense capital goods new orders. As you know, I love non-defense capital goods new orders, especially when it's year over year.
Excluding aircraft.
Excluding aircraft. How could I forget? Excluding aircraft. And also we have here my favorite Sonar Index of all time, FOTRI. I can't live without it. So that's here in the green line. Looking at the revision number, just because we had the early release last week, showed some growth, some improvement. But really, over the next couple of months, I'm anticipating some slowdowns for sure for non-defense capital goods new orders, excluding aircraft, going into the year of the end of the year. As you know, we had the ISM PMI that also came out, showed some significant downward movement for that new orders component. So really starting to see somewhat of a shift, anticipating that there is going to be some slower growth, but it's not going to be bad news for 2022, just slower growth on those new orders and production numbers coming in. But good news for those carriers is that there's going to be a lot of capacity moving throughout the country. Those shippers I think are really going to start slowing down, just because a lot of them haven't even received some of their initial orders. They're just receiving orders so slowly that they may start holding off. And of course, those inflationary pressures, that's also putting another headwind in it as well.
Yeah, ISM PMI still in expansionary territory, but down significantly down. I think it's like 61 in the month of October. All right, Anthony, we'll check back in with you here in a moment.